She also said here, 2023 was historic in ratings. No, it wasn't. 2004 was bigger than 2023.
The year that WNBA ratings took off was 2023. Elle Duncan just asserted that on ESPN. There is a huge issue. This assertion totally misrepresents the truth. I'll explain in this video how Duncan's assertion contradicts the actual history of women's basketball development. We'll look at the real viewership figures for both seasons. Examine how Caitlin Clark's arrival in 2024 changed the league like a rocket unexpectedly taking off, and discuss why Duncan's decision to double down is important.
So, this whole thing doesn't take into account that the reason why 2023 was such an uptick is because of Caitlin Clark.
You'll find hard data regarding the factors actually driving the WNBA's extraordinary growth and the forces working to shape this story. Did you hear Elle Duncan's recent statement on ESPN? It caused basketball fans all over the world to stare in shock. In fact, Duncan claimed live that 2023 was the year when WNBA ratings skyrocketed. Yes, you heard correctly. According to Duncan, women's basketball's major ratings breakthrough occurred in 2023 rather than 2024. Fans began criticizing her on social media as soon as she said those comments.
And that's the worst part of all this, is the new fans are sucking the life out of the WNBA right now. It's just the truth. You are right. You are right, new fans. There has never been more viewership because of Caitlin Clark. There's never been more attention. They're doing 40 minutes on First Take about Caitlin Clark. They never did that before, as Monica McNutt called out. You're right. But you know what there was in the WNBA last year and the years prior? There was other storylines. There was joy. There was talk of competition. There was talk of what was actually happening on the court.
You would think she was reading directly from Nelson's official reports because of how confidently she spoke. Here's the issue, though. The real figures paint an entirely different picture. The information reveals a sharp difference between the two seasons. In terms of viewership, 2024 completely outperformed 2023 when compared side by side. Compared to 2023, the 2024 WNBA season has continuously attracted 2 to 3 times as many viewers per game. Regular season games are now drawing about 1 million viewers, compared to perhaps 300,000 last year. How could someone who covers sports for a living overlook something so obvious?
And because there's so much weird stuff like this being said, and by the way, this is why, by the way, the Caitlin Clark fans are like, why are you not comparing ratings? Why are you diminishing this? Is because this is from Elle Duncan's own show during
What transpired when supporters began calling attention to this obvious mistake only serves to exacerbate the matter. Screenshots showing viewership figures and side-by-side comparisons were all over Twitter feeds. Duncan doubled down rather than admitting his error or providing a correction. She dug in her heels even more when viewers questioned her assertions. Instead of discussing the actual viewership figures, Duncan shifted her focus to other 2023 storylines that allegedly piqued interest in the league. She implied that these narratives were the primary factor behind the WNBA's expansion, but the majority of those storylines had nothing to do with gameplay or athletic accomplishments.
WNBA last year and the years prior, there was other storylines. There was joy. There was talk of competition. There was talk of what was actually happening.
Yeah, no, there wasn't. No, there wasn't. And I mean that when I say that. No.
And when I say no, I mean that if you paid careful attention to women's basketball last season, you are aware that the majority of the media coverage was dominated by player feuds on social media and off-court drama, which had little to do with the sport of basketball.
I'm someone who very much was not a big follower of the WNBA. Do you want to know what the conversations were in 2023? Why is Sabrina Ionescu on the NBA 2K24 cover? Why is Sabrina Ionescu getting a shoe when Aja Wilson isn't? Why is Sabrina Ionescu not using her platform to bring up the people in the league that are of another race that are better than her? They are the conversations that were being had.
In addition to promoting their exciting games due to the 2023 WNBA season, teams were also reacting to the Clark phenomena. However, this fact appears to jeopardize several media narratives. Have you observed the actual events that took place during last year's WNBA coverage?
3. But it was the most in 19 years, which was something, and it was a big uptick from 2022 in fairness. But also, This whole thing doesn't take into account that the reason why 2023 was such an uptick is because of Caitlin Clark.
Elle Duncan alludes to the ceaseless barrage of off-color controversies that dominated news in 2023 when she mentions other themes from that year. The plot of 2023 was more about drama than basketball. The issue around Kelsey Plum's video athletic performances were overshadowed by social media conflicts and Twitter feuds. Media outlets turned women's basketball into a reality show by devoting more time to social media post-analysis than to strategy and gameplay.
We can look back in 2023, we can see that they were the biggest conversations. And the problem is that this league is not seen in most situations as a basketball.
This coverage served as a warped mirror, reflecting everything but the game itself, which was what really mattered. Instead of seeing athletic prowess, viewers were treated to controversy. Instead of focusing on the incredible skills demonstrated on the court, discussions centered on extraneous matters like shoe deal inequalities. The controversy surrounding the game took precedence over the basketball. Duncan's admission regarding Caitlin Clark just a year ago was the most illuminating. She said that the WNBA is being destroyed by Caitlin Clark's actions. Those precise phrases, "This is about a person who has helped sell out arenas throughout the country and introduced women's basketball to millions of new fans."
But saying, oh, the Caitlin Clark stuff is sucking the life out of the WNBA. Well, I mean, you are on First Take. You are getting all these opportunities because of a boom started by Caitlin Clark.
When ratings began to rise, this goes beyond simply misattributing. The goal is to control the conversation on who should be given credit for the rising popularity of women's basketball. There is reluctance to admit that the sport benefits from new followers drawn in by Clark's talent and fierce competition. Duncan views the entire fan movement growing around the WNBA as transient when he says
last year that the old WNBA crew, people that treat it like it's a club and not a sports league, do not give a damn about this.
This coverage causes needless divisiveness when there ought to be joy. Certain commentators pit players against one another, fostering a us versus them narrative between seasoned WNBA fans and newcomers, rather than acknowledging how increased viewing benefits everyone in women's basketball. Why would someone who professes to be an advocate for women's sports wish to turn off potential viewers?
Started by Caitlin Clark. The records numbers in 2023 was caused by the boom started by Caitlin Clark, and the fact that the media cannot realise that even if it isn't just only Caitlin Clark, that what these players have done, these young players have done, especially Caitlin Clark, 95% of it being her.
Media personalities minimize these athletes' accomplishments by emphasizing scandals over on-court prowess, implying that drama is more important than basketball.
I was a very casual fan because I just liked basketball. But I'm sorry, that was most of the conversation. And then most of the conversation as well was about the pay. Remember that Kelsey Plum clip that went viral? That was half the freaking conversation in the general public. And I'm sorry the WNBA had its little club that maybe they were talking about basketball, but from seeing that little club, no, they freaking didn't. No, they didn't. And that is the problem. That was the problem then, it's still the problem now, and been the problem the last year.
We ought to inquire as to why certain media personalities are unable to recognize the real forces behind the WNBA's expansion. Why minimize new supporters of women's basketball and prioritize dispute over joy when the statistics show that more people than ever before are following the sport without considering if these are the correct kind of fans? Maybe we should be grateful that more people are now acknowledging these athletes' extraordinary abilities.
But that's not a knock on the sport. Who gives a flying FUCK why a player gets brought in? The problem is the media have done so much time blaming that player, blaming new fans, that ironically all they've done is either turned off a lot of new fans, because the media itself, I actually think, is a reason why there wasn't, not more obviously than Caitlin Clark's year, but the media itself probably drew and ran off 200,000-300,000 people minimum from watching the draft this year, because people that just enjoyed women's basketball just got put off by the entire thing. It's at least a couple of 100,000 people that would have just stayed.
Caitlin Clark was reinventing the collegiate basketball playbook, turning it into a real-time cultural phenomenon while Duncan was busy attributing some fictitious WNBA breakthrough to 2023. The proof was indisputable. Every Iowa venue that was used was filled. Suddenly, scalpers were demanding hundreds of dollars for nosebleed seats at college women's basketball games. Unprecedented circumstances prior to Clark's arrival.
you go watch Iowa play, and you watch Iowa play against UConn if you're a new fan, and maybe you're like, oh, that Beckers girl is really good. You go watch Iowa play against Louisville, which also broke records, then play South Carolina and be like, you know, that Boston girl, the big for South Carolina is a good player. Louisville, oh, that Van Lith had 27 points in this game. She's elite as well.
The story is told by Clark's final collegiate season numbers. 12.3 million people watched the Iowa versus LSU women's collegiate basketball game, drawing more spectators than many NBA playoff games that year. In terms of women's sports watching, this was not just historic, it was revolutionary.
And a lot of people were Angel Reese fans, regardless of that. So 10 million people are acting like 10 million people watched that game because they knew retroactively that Angel Reese was going to chase Caitlin Clark around the court doing this. And then after the game was going to go, this is for you, Caitlin Clark, while on video, and start doing that while Caitlin Clark is already in the locker room.
Clark's influence went beyond high-profile matches. Iowa games throughout the regular season often broke decades-old attendance records. Ratings soared every time Clark took the floor, so networks aggressively changed their schedules to include more Hawkeye games.
Caitlin versus Angel, no. More people watch Caitlin versus Paige, more people watch Caitlin in the final. And yeah, there's 20 million people there, but they're setting records. Why are they setting records? Because the people that have come in to watch the WNBA, to watch women's basketball, are enjoying it. Straight up. There are people that are watching certain teams. Like, there are a lot of people in Minnesota that are becoming big fans of the Lynx. There are a lot of UConn kids.
Think about the normal league game against Maryland in February 2023, which sold out weeks in advance. For women's games, the normally half-empty student section turned into a sea of yelling spectators. The stands were filled with signs that said, "Clark for president and the GOAT has arrived," as Clark scored 42 points. When the Hawkeyes arrived in town, schools that had never sold out a women's basketball game started turning away thousands of students.
Maybe not even UConn fans. Paige Beckers fans a lot of the time were just the UConn fans. Now you're looking at casual fans being fans of Paige Beckers, like they're a fan of a Cooper Flagg, like they're going to be a fan of an Ace Bailey or a Dylan Harper, especially because you know they're going to stay more years in college. And it's going to be the same with Juju. Whereas like if you are a fan of Juju in college, you're going to follow Juju to the WNBA, and it's the first time Caitlin really, especially because how good Caitlin was, and to a lesser extent how good Angel was, it's the first real time that there have been fans following players directly over.
Meanwhile, average viewership ratings for regular games during the 2023 WNBA season, which Duncan celebrates, were continuously tripling at the collegiate level for Clark. Duncan's timeline breaks down when considering what transpired subsequently, because the arena excitement he attributes to 2023 pales in comparison to the regular sellouts Iowa saw everywhere they performed. Ticket sales for the Indiana Fever skyrocketed as soon as Clark revealed her intention to enter the WNBA draft. Months before she played her first professional minute, a team who couldn't fill half their arena the previous season experienced instant sellouts.
So, yeah, we can be completely honest. We have to be here. That what L. Duncan said was just completely out of line a year ago. What she's saying right now is actually completely correct. It is completely correct that there's no point in measuring on 2024 because that's never going to happen again. But to remove the context that the reason why 2025 is so big is partially because of what happened in 2023, what happened in 2024 in college ball. The more people got into it to watch a specific player play, and they stayed.
Overnight, the Fever went from being one of the least popular teams to having the most sought-after ticket in sports. The league's teams instantly marketed its Fever games as must-see occasions. Before Clark even donned a Fever jersey, television networks rushed to schedule more Indiana games. This obvious shift from collegiate phenomena to professional game changer highlights Duncan's fallacy in logic. The audience who watched basketball had already seen Clark's revolutionary influence, and their zeal immediately translated to the WNBA, shattering the concept that 2023 would be the game-changing year for women's basketball.
But what has now happened is, because I actually do enjoy the product. I think in general it's a pretty good product. I enjoy the games. I enjoy watching basketball. I think a lot of people do enjoy watching basketball. Is that so many people have stayed? Even if we're looking at it as a percentage of people that just watch Caitlin Clark, you could argue it's a really low percentage. But if you look at it as a percentage of the people that were there pre-Caitlin Clark, it's a huge percentage, plus 100%, plus 200, 300% in some situations. And the sport is only growing with the new stars coming up through college. And again, none of this happens without a triple-double, 40-point triple-double from Caitlin Clark against Louisville, 40 points against South Carolina, the LSU game, and the following year, 41.12 assist game from Caitlin Clark.
To be honest, the current state of the WNBA goes much beyond Elle Duncan's misplaced assertions. In this league, fans are starting a real movement. While some media figures attempt to limit who is given credit for the WNBA's achievements game after game, true basketball fans are turning out, creating a genuine community that is here to stay. There is no denying the enthusiasm in crowded stadia. Seas of jests and thunderous applause reveal a sincere, enduring passion. Although growth has been expedited by stars like Caitlin Clark, the league as a whole has been accepted by fans. The statistics demonstrate that women's basketball is asserting its legitimate position in sports culture, and they encourage reporting that acknowledges these realities and this noteworthy development.